Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of our B2B data provider reviewing series, and today we're going to talk about Crustdata. When we talk about B2B data API suite that pushes real-time signals instead of just static enrichment and search, Crustdata is one of the names that comes to our minds. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what they actually offer in terms of the endpoints they have, pricing, and most importantly, coverage and accuracy. And at the end of the video, I'm sharing 3 alternatives to Crustdata: CompanyEnrich, CoreSignal, and PDL. Let's go. Crustdata is one of the API-first B2B data platforms built primarily for data engineers, developers, GTM engineers, we can tell, not directly having a UI for sales or marketing teams to get what they want. So the first thing that we need to understand is that this is a tool that you wire into your stack, not a tool to your SDRs to log into. When we look at their core product, the API suite, we see that they have 4 different buckets. First one is Company API, of course. You can perform search, identify, which is actually an identity resolution before enrichment, and then you can enrich companies. With the Person API, you can perform search and enrichment. They also offer Web API suite, which comes with search and fetch. With search, you can perform web search queries and return results from multiple sources. And with fetch, what you can do is that you can fetch the HTML content of web pages given URLs. And we also see that they have a job API, which enables you to get a job dataset using filter conditions. Let's also have a look at the files that return with the company enrichment endpoint, because when you're picking a provider or an API endpoint, it's not just about the coverage you can get. You might have a very high find rate, but if you don't get the files that is relevant and important for your case, workflow, or the qualification, it can become useless because simply you won't be able to see that data point within your list. So with Crustdata, what I see that with the direct enrichment endpoint, they provide the company data itself, not the headcount, funding, people, and hiring. Within the list, I enrich with Crustdata's Company Enrichment API. I see that I get all the basic info like name. Actually, I might also be getting market description, company type as well, year founded, but they came new. I see logo, employee count range, and the LinkedIn URL. When we also look at their Person Enrichment API to see what files they returned, we see that the flow works like you input either a LinkedIn URL or business email, and then you get the files like employment history, social handles, skills, education, certifications, and also basic information related to that person. When we also look at their rate limits, they provide the default rate limit of 15 requests per minute, which is very low, and they require you to contact them for higher limits for your use case. Let's go back to the highlights of Crustdata, which we stated in the very beginning of the video as well. So they provide the Watcher API, which is a webhook-based endpoint where you set watches on companies and people, so you get notified when something changes, like promotion, a job change, a funding round. If you have a signal-based playbook within your workflows, automations, or the whole strategy, it's a very useful endpoint. They also offer this as a use case, obviously powered by the Watcher API, and they're also focusing on the monitoring of your portfolio company 24/7. So when you question what is really good about Crustdata, honestly, we can definitely say that it is the Watcher API. As we already stated, if your workflow is event-driven, let's say that AI SDRs that fire on job changes, investment platforms tracking funding round, or recruiting tools monitoring hiring signals, Crustdata is purpose-built for that. Now, where does Crustdata get complicated? A few notes worth knowing. First, pricing isn't published. Unlike PDL or CompanyEnrich in the market, you can't see what you'll pay before getting on a sales call. From third-party sources I reviewed, the starter tire seems to land somewhere in the $200 to $500 range per mount, growth around 1K to 3K, and enterprise or bulk dataset at 5K and up. But you need a conversation to confirm, and for teams that need budget approval before evaluating, it's a friction. And the second note worth knowing, the broad enrichment numbers are modest. We run 349 domains through Crustdata's enrichment API, and they returned 175 out of the total, which makes them sit at 50% find rate, which is lowest among the other providers we evaluated, so we can say that data depth was also narrower than the rest. But here is the honest framing. Crustdata isn't really trying to be general purpose enrichment API. Their bet is on real-time signals over broad static coverage, but still they are very well known for their enrichment and the database, so we can say that it's a minus point for them. And a final note I have to mention is that they don't have any self-serve UI, so you cannot directly sign up to their platform to start testing. They don't have a semantic search function. They don't have lookalikes API or preview APIs available. So if those things matter to your workflows, you might feel some gap. These are not deal breakers, to be honest, but these are the factors that you should take into consideration while picking Crustdata for your specific use case or comparing to alternatives. Let's move with alternatives. The first one to mention is CompanyEnrich, which takes a different approach to the same general problem. Where Crustdata is built around real-time signals, CompanyEnrich is built around verified enrichment with broad endpoint coverage. They provide company and people-level data under one API suite. On the both API and dashboard side, you have access to company enrichment, company search, similar companies, people search, email enrichment, reverse email lookup, which is available through API, and the company headcount. To have a quick note here, CompanyEnrich also has semantic search and a lookalikes API, both of which Crustdata doesn't offer. When we mention broad coverage, we can also take a look at the benchmark. So, as we did for Crustdata's enrichment endpoint, we did the same for CompanyEnrich with 249 domains submitted to their enrichment API, and CompanyEnrich returned 236 out of the total, which makes them sit at 67% find rate, like 20% higher than what Crustdata has. One more thing worth mentioning here is that CompanyEnrich ships a hosted MCP server. So, if you're building with AI agents, your agent can call all the endpoints at native tools. You can also play with the MCP server in the playground. Crustdata recently added MCP support too, so both providers are AI agent ready, but with different architectural focuses. Crustdata pushes events, CompanyEnrich pulls verified data. And finally, on the pricing side, CompanyEnrich has 3 transparent tires starting at $49 amount with credit rollover system on the higher plans and a 500 credit-free trial for testing. That's the biggest pricing difference versus Crustdata. You can see what you'll pay before you commit, and you can test before you talk to anyone. The second alternative to Crustdata is CoreSignal, which is also one of the most established providers in the space. They've been in the market since 2016. Where Crustdata is event-driven and CompanyEnrich is unified, verified enrichment, CoreSignal's angle is depth and historical archive. On the dataset side, they state 75 million company profiles, 839 million employee records, and over 460 million job posting going back to 2020. So the reason that I wanted to focus on historical archive or the depth, because this is where CoreSignal competes with Crustdata. Both are aimed at platforms, VCs, and sales tech companies operating at scale. So the difference is the historical depth. CoreSignal offers, plus 5 years of archived job posting, headcount evolution over time, which Crustdata leans into real-time signals. On the data coverage side, we can again look at the benchmark. CoreSignal's enrichment API returned 176 profiles out of 349, which makes them sit at, again, 50%, very similar to Crustdata. On pricing, CoreSignal starts at $49 amount for the starter tier, very similar to CompanyEnrich in terms of the price of the package. But when you look at the credit costs, you see that it starts from 0.1. And when we go back to CompanyEnrich starter, it starts from 0.009. This is the difference. And also, CoreSignal pricing jumps to 800 per month very quickly, and then you go up to 1,500 for premium. So very similar to Crustdata in a sense of you feel the gap between the entry-level testing and a production scale usage, but at least they have publicly visible tiers. If you made the here, you will be hearing the third alternative of Crustdata, which is People Data Labs. I will be calling PDL in the rest of the video, which is probably the closest competitor to Crustdata in terms of developer focus and webhooks for real-time signals. So both are API first. Actually, I can tell that all of the providers in this video are API first, but their positioning is a bit different. Both target technical teams and have a strong documentation. On the API side, PDL provides person enrichment, person search, and a person identity API for identity risk management. On the company side, they offer enrichment and search, plus they have job posting data available right now, which is currently in beta. So if you're thinking about switching from Crust to PDL for job posting data, you should know that it's still in beta phase. To have a quick note here, PDL's bulk enrichment supports up to 100 records per request, which is one of the largest in the comparison. CompanyEnrich also providing much higher of this. For teams running enrichment at scale, PDL, CompanyEnrich, these can be meaningful decisions. As we did for all other providers in this review, let's look at the benchmark for PDL's coverage. So we did the same. We put 349 domains to PDL's company enrichment API, and it returned 210 out of total, which makes them sit at 60.2%, more closer to CompanyEnrich and much higher when you compare to Core and Crust. On pricing, I'm always saying that PDL has a very different approach when you compare the others. They split subscriptions into two, for person data and for company data. So if you need both, you need two different subscriptions. Crustdata for sure is one of the greatest B2B data API providers in the space. And with Watcher API, they provide real-time signals, which is brilliant for event-based, signal-based playbooks, workflows, and needs. But with different needs, you might need different solutions. CompanyEnrich, CoreSignal, and PDLs get into the game at that point, providing you with different angles, different strength points to power your platforms, workflows, and AI agents, let's say. If you're using or ever use one of the providers in this video, please share in the comments that how you use them, how you find their coverage, pricing, and endpoints, so we can have some chat. See you on the next one. Bye!